Chapter 51 Your Highness, I dedicate my sword to you. Second more. Next, is the ceremony of granting the right to hold the sword. Of course. In fact, Morgan quietly used magic to give Altria an enhancement. She is a superb magician. If Merlin is here, you can see Morgan's movements. But now Altria is just an immature knight, so she didn't notice it. After receiving the ritual that Morgan gave her, she only felt that her body was full of power. Now I have nothing to be afraid of. Well, you have been strengthened. Go on. Morgan released the magic, and then she patted Altria's shoulder lightly, indicating that she could move. Yes, Your Highness. Altria walked in the direction of the sword in the stone. Keep your head high. Now she felt that she was not fighting alone. Throughout Britain, the ancestors of the Pendragon family were watching her. The current King Yaoser is left with only one descendant of His Royal Highness Morgan, and some nobles want to subvert the regime of Pendragon. As a knight of the Knights of the Round Table, I will never let this happen. I want to protect His Royal Highness Morgan. When two people talked like this, there were a few people around who tried to take the sword again. Without exception, they all failed. At this time, Altria was on the stage. Everyone looked at it and talked a lot. Who is this boy? I don't know, but he looks like a knight in his costume. Such a young knight, it seems that he should have some abilities. However, several well-known knights have tried before, and they have not succeeded. This boy will not succeed. Well, I think so too. The people talking like this did not interfere with Altria's actions. She came to the sword in the stone. Hold the hilt. She felt a very relaxed feeling. As long as he exerts force, he can pull out the long sword. These should be given to him by His Royal Highness Morgan. Okay, for Your Highness. Altria thought in her heart. The palm is up. From Tilda. The sword in the stone was pulled out. Altria held the sword in the stone with both hands and lifted it up high, announcing to everyone present, I pulled out the sword in the stone. The people present were stunned when they saw this scene. Everyone seemed to be stepped on the neck. The noisy venue just now became silent. Sword in the stone. Was it pulled out? How can this be? The boy in front of him was just an ordinary knight. Why is he? It's like a succubus who everyone thinks is a bitch, riding a unicorn that can only be ridden by a virgin. Everyone was very unconvinced, especially some nobles. They all thought that this opportunity would belong to them, and they also had the opportunity to become Camelot's king. But now, this opportunity was actually taken by an unknown teenager. Do you want to bow down to the boy in front of you? Everyone thought in their hearts. Then, the scene that made them even more shocking appeared. Altria, holding the sword in the stone, walked towards the crowd. Then, came to Morgan's front. Everyone saw Morgan. The faces of several nobles who knew her changed drastically. How did she come here? And, what's the situation? Could it be that the young man who picked up the sword in the stone was about to challenge Morgan? No, what is he doing? Everyone only saw Altria knelt on one knee, and then raise the sword in the stone in her hand. His Royal Highness, fortunately to live up to my mission, I have brought back the sword in the stone for you, Altria said to Morgan. Ah, very good. Morgan nodded slightly. But she didn't pick up the sword in the stone. The old liar Merlin prepared something for Altria. If he moved, he couldn't say what would happen. This sword belongs to me now. Morgan gave a mysterious smile, then said with a light smile to everyone. Go, Altria, follow me back. Yes. Altria put the sword in her waist, and then followed Morgan's back step by step. Everyone saw this in their eyes. After such a move, now, everyone's concern is naturally not on Altria's body. In their hearts, they thought it was Morgan's use of the method that allowed Altria to hold the sword in his hand. This is more reliable. People from the Pendragon family have some tricks, which is also very normal. At least it was more reasonable than a little-known rookie knight who picked up the sword in the stone. As for why Morgan didn't get it by himself, the expressions of the nobles present suddenly became ugly. Morgan was definitely calculating something. The only objects of calculation could be the nobles who did not want her to become King Camelot. Danger. The nobles present remembered the mysterious expression on Morgan's face before, and they couldn't help but feel chills in their hearts. Morgan, this woman is a bit scary. Xiao Long bao, Chasu bao, custard and sesame bean paste, bigru bao, vegetable bao and tang bao. Morgan was very satisfied with Altria's actions today, and for such a satisfactory result of her, of course, it is a good way to meet her needs. She took out everything that was delicious, and ordered 3 or 4 cooks from Orkney to stand by at any time. For this reward, Altria can be said to be very satisfied, finally full. And it's the Orkney cuisine invented by His Majesty Lott. Happiness Tilda. It's really happiness. You eat slowly, no one will grab you. Looking at Altria like this, Morgan said in a petting tone. After all, this is his own sister. Altria agreed vaguely. Morgan couldn't help smiling when he looked at her so charmingly. My sister. How good is this? It was also because of the calculations of the old liar that Merlin had robbed himself of the throne. Thinking of this, Morgan scolded the dead white hair again in his heart. Then, she looked at Altria and said, well, when you are full, go back and rest. Remember, although your teacher is a superb magician, but in some respects it is very good. Disgusting. Okay? Altria looked up at Morgan. Do you know? My father once said that sometimes, what Merlin said, don't believe any letter. Morgan also moved out of King Arthur to persuade Altria. Well, Teacher, sometimes there are indeed some, Altria said embarrassedly. King Yaosa is her idol, and she naturally would not think that what he said was wrong. Morgan looked at his sister's expression, very satisfied, and then she continued to say to Altria, it is estimated that after you go back, he may think of something to tease you. At this time, as long as you don't believe it, that's fine. Chapter 52. Mei Lin is dumbfounded. Third more. This, all right. Altria nodded and agreed. She thought about Morgan's words, and felt that her words were not wrong. It's really possible for your own teacher to tell yourself some messy words. But the teacher is not bad at all. Later, as long as his words are not too outrageous, believe it. If it's too outrageous, then I will treat him as a joke, not taking it seriously. Swallowing the meat bun in his mouth, Altria took the sword in the stone again and placed it in front of Morgan with both hands. His Royal Highness, here is this sword in the stone. You didn't take it just now, but now I present it to you. Forget it, I'll give you this sword. Morgan still didn't take it. I'm afraid I won't be able to pick it up, and I will expose the lie. She looked at Altria. As a knight, of course you need a good weapon. All legendary knight stories begin by picking up an artifact. But, of course, Altria liked this sword very much. After all, it was much better than the weapon she was using now. However, this is not his own thing. Altria always feels that it is not very safe to pick it up. I gave it to you, just hold it. I'm a magician, so naturally it's not easy to use this sword. Altria, you use this sword to fight for me, then this represents this one. The sword has played its value. Morgan continued. Okay. After some ideological struggle, Altria took the sword in the stone. In my heart, I am more loyal to Morgan. Morgan continued to look at Altria indulgingly, and then stood up. Okay, you continue to eat. I'm going to find Lott. Okay. Altria nodded. Then, he held another bin paste bun in both hands and started to bite into it. It didn't take long for Altria finally remembered that she still had not done swordsmanship training, and immediately wanted to go back quickly. But just after 2 steps, Altria turned around again. Well, Mr. Chef, can you pack a few more cages for me? Altria should be the king now. Let me announce her identity as the father and son of King Asa later. Mei Lin calculated the time, then thought silently. With Lott in this city, Mei Lin's ability to predict is greatly reduced. At present, Altria's affairs can only be judged by speculation. But when he wanted to come, only Altria could pick up this sword in the stone. Therefore, as long as this has not changed, everything else is in your own hands. Well, let's take a look. Mei Lin just walked out. Then he saw Altria, who was holding a big bag of buns, walking in. The corners of Mei Lin's mouth twitched slightly. Teacher, you haven't left yet? Altria tilted her head and said to Mei Lin. Immediately, she thought for a while, and then made a difficult decision. She reached out, picked up a vegetable bag and handed it to Mei Lin. Teacher, do you want to eat steamed buns? His Royal Highness Morgan specially asked the chef to make them. They are delicious. I don't like to be vegetarian. Mei Lin smiled and stretched out his hand to take out a meat bun in the bag. This is still suitable for me. After speaking, in Altria's painful expression, he ate the meat buns. In the process of eating, he was quietly looking at Altria. She carried the sword in the stone. Then prove that she has pulled out the sword. But if she drew the sword, why would Morgan give her food? Is she rewarding Altria for taking her throne? If it were Lott, maybe he would think so. But if you change to Morgan, you should hate Altria at the moment, right? Etc. If this is the case, there is no poison in this food, right? Mei Lin carefully felt the food that he had eaten just now. Okay, not poisonous. The taste is pretty good. So what is going on? While Mei Lin was thinking, Altria said to Mei Lin in a complaining tone, Teacher, don't tease me again next time. If it weren't for His Royal Highness Morgan, I would be laughed at. Mei Lin said nonchalantly. I just saw that the holy sword in the stone was interesting, so I let you try it. Maybe, if you take it out, you can become the new king of Camelot. At the same time, he stretched out his hand to point at the sword in the stone on Altria's waist. In other words, your sword seems to be the holy sword stuck in the stone. You pulled it out. In this case, do you want to become Camelot's new king? You said this. Altria took up the sword in the stone. Then he said to Mei Lin, this sword is Pendragon's treasure, and the whole thing is a conspiracy against the Pendragon family. If it weren't for His Royal Highness Morgan, Camelot's situation would be very bad. Altria said all Morgan's words about him. Finally, she said to Mei Lin, Teacher, in the end, His Royal Highness Morgan gave me the sword in the stone. Teacher, now I am going to start training, and I can't live up to the expectations of His Royal Highness Morgan. Oh, this King Arthur is quite hidden. I haven't seen this sword before. Okay, Altria, go and practice swordsmanship. I have something to do. Let's go. Recently, the city of Chalk the prostitution is discounted, and I absolutely can't give up the bargain. Mei Lin said this, then took out a meat bun from the bag and walked outside. Only a continual pain of Altria was left. She knows very well that the teacher's belly is not hungry at all. There is only one reason why he is holding the meat buns. He wanted to see his painful expression. Really a teacher. When he came outside, Mei Lin opened his mouth vigorously and took a bite of the meat bun. He felt that if he had emotions, he would be very angry. What is this? The sword in the stone is Pendragon's private possession. What a joke. I personally inserted this sword in the stone. I know its origin better than anyone else. But how did Morgan know? How did she know that the sword in the stone was only available to Altria? And her rhetoric. The corners of Merlin's mouth just couldn't help but twitch when remembering what Altria had told Morgan just now. How did this man do it? All the credit for pulling out the sword in the stone was concentrated on her body, making Altria grateful to her. At the same time, it also made others think that all the credit for drawing the sword in the stone belonged to her. Let Altria only become a swordsman. So thick-skinned, almost catching up with me. Chapter 53. Lott is also dumbfounded. 3K. It's 2 changes. It's really unsupportable. Things have become interesting. Although it was indeed a bit of a loss this time, Merlin was not too discouraged. Next time, I will do better myself. If you can't even accept this setback, then self-failure is justified. He is quite confident of his victory. Otherwise, he wouldn't talk about Camelot splitting things when he was talking to King Yasser. If you can't guarantee that Altria will win and become the king of all territories except the Chalk City, then how dare you say it? It's just that this is the first time I have experienced it. It's really hard to accept. Merlin said so. For the first time, things were completely deviating from the trajectory that I had predicted before. Panicked. Really? This is a feeling that Merlin has never experienced. Also unacceptable. There is another person. When Lott was still in the city, he had already heard the news that someone had pulled out the sword in the stone. As soon as he heard this, where can I not understand? Isn't this that Altria drew the sword in the stone? The old liar Merlin should be very proud of it now. Even if he can't see himself clearly, his strength is much better than himself and Morgan. If he knows the enemy, in the next plot, it should be that Saba becomes the king, or the Quilt King who doesn't understand people's hearts. Then she began her career. After a series of bitter battles, she was finally stabbed to death by her rebellious son Mordred. But thinking of this, Lott decided to do one thing. Find a way to comfort his wife Morgan. She always wanted to be the king. But now it's miscalculated. She must be very angry and hateful now. According to the original history, after she saw Altria became the king, there was no way to accept it, and she eventually blackened. And then has been sending trouble to Altria and the Knights of the Round Table. Eventually caused tragedy for everyone. But now I have myself. This kind of history will never happen again. I must let Morgan know that as long as I give her husband enough time, it will definitely give her a position that is more glorious than the Queen of Britain. Her ability and ambition cannot always be above jealousy. I have to comfort her. Thinking of this in his mind, he started to look outside, ready to find Morgan to comfort her. Maybe it's because of the eloquence of the heart. Lott hadn't walked far on the road when he saw Morgan. Wife. Lott rushed over, then hugged her. Morgan was suddenly hugged by Lott. Feeling the familiar breath, Morgan leaned in Lott's arms very obediently. Morgan took a comfortable pose. See, Guzi really understands me, knowing that I have successfully calculated Merlin, and that Shi Zongjian's situation is beneficial to him, so he came here to celebrate with me. Not bad, really good. A sweet smile appeared on Morgan's face. Although my husband is a dog, he is the kind of dog who is single-minded to himself, only to himself, and cares about himself very much. Hey, how should I speak to comfort my wife later? Okay, comfort? Morgan's move became dumbfounded. What are you thinking about? I still need someone to comfort me. The person who needs comfort now is called Merlin. Wife, please feel at ease. I will never let you blacken. Why am I going to blacken it? I'm fine now. What am I going to do with blackening? Laughter. Have you misunderstood me? I know you are now feeling uncomfortable and angry when you see Altria pull out the sword in the stone and become the king of Camelot. No, I am not angry at all. I am even very happy. You can never think of it. Although it was my sister Altria who drew the sword in the stone, everyone thought it was me. Now, at the very least, no one will take the chosen person to replace my Camelot heir. Next, as long as I deal with those nobles, I will successfully become the king of Camelot. Wife, don't worry, this is only temporary. In a few years, I will make Merlin regret it. It doesn't take a few years, and now I have made the fellow Merlin regret it. Husband, don't worry, it's just a white hair. You don't need to take action. I can deal with him by myself. You, still put your talents in a more important place. It is not my goal to unify the whole of Britain, so that everyone in this Britain can live a happy life. That is what I want. Isn't this what you are after? The beauty of this world needs to be enjoyed by more people. Let's just wait for Altria and Votajing to fight each other, fight for life and death, and finally let's come and be the final victor. It's not very realistic. We still need to fight against him personally to deal with Votajing's affairs. But don't worry, since you can defeat Votajing once, then we can also defeat him a second or third time. A young boy of 17 or 18 years old, just wanting to lie down and let others do work. That's not working. Follow your words. What is it called? Yes, you have to stand up. It's like yours. It scares me all the time. Let your fighting spirit rise. My husband. At this time, Lott was still thinking. Let me think about it. How do I say the first sentence? Morgan. Morgan interrupted Lott just about to speak. Lott, do do you know? Today I taught those who covet my throne a good lesson, Morgan said with a smile. She didn't want to hear Lott speak to comfort herself. Just let him listen to what Lott said in his heart. If you put it on the table and talked to yourself, and then you said that what you said was actually wrong, wouldn't that mean embarrassing your own dog? Then embarrass him. What will I get? Pleasant. My husband is embarrassed, and I feel happy. How does this not love my husband? This is how grumbly, or deliberately embarrassing your husband, and then establish your own family status? Are you kidding me? The status of the family depends on the respect of both parties, not you can adjust the Jiao. Therefore, Morgan spoke in advance before speaking. Then, Lott froze. What's this? And what? The sword in the stone can only be picked up by Altria? How could it be like Morgan's wish? What happens? Lott asked quickly. Things surpassed his imagination, making Lott feel that his brain was not enough. Morgan smiled and said, that's it. I let Altria draw the sword. Then, she drew the sword and followed behind me. Now all the nobles think that the sword of the king is mine. Only under the control of Altria can be pulled out. Therefore, all those plans that want to use this sword in the stone to shake my dominance are all in vain. Hearing Morgan say this, Lott had only one thought in his mind at the moment. This is okay? Well, yes, this kind of thing does work. Morgan thought very proudly in his heart. Embarrassing her husband is something a woman would do. But I want to see how my husband came to be surprised by me. That's still a joy. Hey, Morgan couldn't help laughing. Be proud. Your wife is so powerful. Lott asked in a puzzled manner. Then how did you know that Altria would draw out the sword? Can she read my heart? However, I have tested it. Even the old fellow Merlin can't use mind reading on me. It is impossible for the current Morgan to do it. He once went to Merlin for a test, deliberately thinking about the future of King Arthur, and Merlin's own ending, and even more distant things in front of him. And those contents, even Merlin couldn't care less. But Merlin didn't react at all at the time. Step by step, even if his expression was very obvious at the time, Merlin still couldn't tell. That proves that he has no way to use mind reading on himself. This is my little secret. I will tell you later. Morgan smiled mysteriously. When to tell him? It's best that you can control it, not to listen to his heart. Most of what I hear now is Lott's heartfelt voices when his emotions are more intense. If I can turn these off, or let Lott control it, I'll tell him. If he knew I could always hear his voice, he would definitely resist me. I don't want to be like this. Before Lott gets up, I will listen to him. But in the future, I don't want to live with this ability. Then, in order to inspire him, she leaned on Lott's cheek and kissed him lightly. This secret is not small at all. Even Altria's identity was exposed. Lott felt very depressed. But after all, he knew Morgan would not harm himself. So he had to concentrate on waiting for when she would tell himself. Anyway, I have a plug-in, and both sides have secrets, let alone anyone. But, my days of fishing. Morgan's doing so will intensify the conflict between her and other nobles. At that time, as her husband, I will not see her suffer. When the time comes, I have no choice but to come and help her. Hey, you can't fish anymore, right? Morgan was very happy when he heard Lott's words. Chapter 54 Buying Altria 2 in 1 chapter. God is always fair. In addition to giving the stunner the wisdom of that day, it also gave him a heart that likes to fish. Morgan thought in his heart. She raised her enthusiasm for Lott again, and she was still very happy in her heart. Morgan believed that as long as Lott launched the offense, everything would be fine. She blinked and said to Lott, yes, don't forget, I told Altria that the sword in the stone depends on my blessing, and she can get it. You, don't be here. It's broken for me. Clear. Luo featured head. When Morgan told himself Altria, he didn't care much about using the term she. Now that Morgan knew that Altria had the ability to draw a sword in the stone, then it wouldn't be a big deal for her to know that King Arthur was a girl. It couldn't be more normal. I don't know how the old liar Merlin reacted after hearing the news. Lott, me, but I like his ugly expression the most. Morgan listened and wanted to laugh too. Indeed, since Merlin had always wanted to fight against himself, it was indeed very pleasant to see his ugly expression. By the way, I really want to know where he is now. Let's go find him. Morgan made suggestions to Lott. Yeah. Luo asked to agree, but he remembered the place where Merlin was in the information released during this period, and immediately shook his head. Forget it. This old pervert has been stuck in the prostitution at this point in time. Good crumbs, Morgan commented. At the same time, she looked at Lott with a vigilant look, and at the same time stretched out her hand to put the palm of her hand on Lott's waist, making plans to rotate it 180 degrees at any time. Lott, you remember, you can't follow him. Although the goozy has to do it once or twice a day, I really can't bear it. However, I will not let my dog to show others. I have nothing to do with him. Lott said dumbfoundedly. Whoever thinks of other women with a beautiful and capable wife like Morgan is really a scumbag. When Lott thought so, Morgan nodded in approval. Yeah, I'm so beautiful and capable. Forget it. Let's not think about that old liar anymore. Let's go. I'm a little hungry after tossing for a long time. In fact, Morgan was already very hungry just now. After all, whoever looks at Altria's mouthful of dry rice will inevitably not raise his appetite. The reason why I didn't eat in front of Altria was mainly because of my own queen and future queen status. At the same time, She was also afraid that she would become the last straw to overwhelm the camel. When it was time to spread it out, it was said that the queen and the knight Altria had eaten so many cooks were exhausted. Those people don't care how much you eat. They just want to advertise that the queen is rice bucket. In this era, British crops have always been in a state of lack. Having a queen of rice buckets is actually very bad for reputation. Now that he is with Lott, there is not much to do. What the two of them eat is just the ordinary workload of a cook. It has nothing to do with himself at all. At this time, Morgan had some luck. Fortunately, it is not my sister who became the King of Britain. If she becomes the King of Britain, it is estimated that Camelot will be crowned the title of the country of rice buckets. If the food given to Altria is a big deal, Morgan and Lott are pursuing exquisite food. The chef made a few exquisite dishes, and matched with the prepared noodles. The two began to eat lunch. Now there was only Lott in front of her, so she didn't need to pretend it anymore. She was already proficient in using chopsticks and picked up a piece of fried greens, put it in her mouth, and took a bite of the pastu at the same time. Lott watched indulgingly, and put a piece of bread in his mouth. Alas, it's also a bit regretful. I really want to eat rice again. Unfortunately, it is too far. There is no way to find rice in Britain, which makes Lott miss very much. Rice? What kind of food is this? Does Siguzi like to eat? Well, first remember, you have to ask people about where it is. You must help Siguzi to fulfill his desires. After eating a few bites of food, Morgan, who was completely incomparable with his sister's appetite, already felt less hungry. She then said to Lott, "Well, Lott, I told you, you don't know how ugly the faces of the nobles today are." Immediately, Morgan drew Altria out of the sword in the stone, and then gave the sword in the stone to himself. The process was 1 to 5 to 10. Those nobles, it is estimated that they are already scared to pee at this moment. Lott couldn't help but said with a smile, "Are we eating now?" Morgan gave Lott a blank look. "Well, I mean the nobles are terrified." Lott immediately made a French military salute, which made Morgan satisfied. "So, do you think those nobles, will they succumb to my bluff at that time?" Morgan continued. "If all the nobles were of one mind, it would of course be impossible." Lott thought for a moment, then said to her, "So, what are we going to do?" Morgan seemed to understand Lott's thoughts. Of course they were defeated by each. Those nobles have different interests. Lott said to Morgan, "Unite one part, then fight the other part, and let the feudal aristocrats fight each other. That is what really should be done." The weakness of the feudal aristocrats is greater than that of the capitalists, and they will be even more confused by the immediate interests. If you want these feudal aristocrats to become the pillars of the country, that is totally impossible. Although Morgan did not understand Lott's meaning, he silently remembered it in his heart. Lott's words must make sense. Those nobles are unreliable. One's own power needs to be cultivated even more. However, I always feel that there is something more to do with lust. Well, do it slowly. Well, I see. Lott, how busy you will be next. Morgan walked to Lott's side, reached out and massaged his shoulders. "Sex dog, give you a massage, and then let my old lady come and work for our family." "Ah, I just came up with an idea. Let someone else do the work. Although it is really cool to be massaged by my own wife. But if you want to allow yourself to do all kinds of things, that's absolutely impossible. My man is the yellow flag of Britain, so he didn't come here to work." Although I don't know what the concept of a yellow flag is, but Lott's desire to fish, Morgan knew clearly. This will not work. Morgan decided to get Lott to get his energy up and want to make him motivated. The first is to get him to drive. So, after a few massages, she lay down in Lott's arms. Massage or massage, only, not so serious. As a result, Lott's motivated energy gained more energy and also made a further upgrade to the previous plan. Just when Lott and Morgan had a refreshing meal, and then Lott ate Morgan again, those Camelot nobles could no longer eat or swallow at this moment. The maids who scratched their heads and posed, they also have no interest in molesting. They felt scared. What does the mysterious expression of His Royal Highness Morgan mean? Has she already understood everything? So can we really prevent her from becoming the king? These nobles, although they don't know how the sword in the stone came from, but they are using these to get Morgan. They came to spread the news about the sword in the stone, attracting knights from all over the country. Let everyone work together to combat Pendragon's reputation. Don't let Pendragon's bloodline become king again, especially Morgan. As soon as she took the shot, she and her husband defeated the humble King Votajing, whom we couldn't beat before, so that he could only rush to Wales to linger. The turf of the previous blockbusters now belongs to Morgan and her husband. If she becomes the king, then our future will be very miserable. Can't let this happen. Therefore, we must find a way to prevent her from becoming a king. But the result? That Morgan didn't make any shots himself. Just let the young man under his hand who had just become a knight to draw out the sword. She didn't even look at us with a straight eye. And if she really makes a move, then how can we resist it? At this time, in fact, many nobles have already begun to retreat in their hearts. How about we just obey her in this life? The nobles have passed on for hundreds of years. The setbacks suffered in a certain generation are not incomprehensible. Let's wait until the next generation. Some nobles began to shrink back. In the same way, Some people are unwilling to give up these things. Power is a poison, and no one is willing to give up. From what Lott and Morgan did before, it can be seen that the two of them are people with a strong desire for control. King Arthur might still care about the power of some nobles, but Lott and Morgan didn't care about it at all. They will only use force to declare the ownership of power. We cannot let this happen. Some nobles thought so in their hearts. At this moment, they thought of someone. This sword, although Morgan may have asked the knight under her to make it. All this is because of Morgan's ability. But in most people's eyes, it was her hand named Altria who drew the sword in the stone. If he can turn back the water. The people who saw Altria express surrender to Morgan on the spot were not too many of Camelot's people. If we persuade her to change her mouth at the most critical moment, saying that he pulled up the holy sword himself, then he can be fully supported as a king. Then Camelot is not the final say to us nobles. Camelot has been a nobleman for so many years, and in front of the people, he still has the credibility he should have. It is not difficult to raise an ordinary little knight. Well, just do it like this. So, a few unwilling nobles gathered together, and then decided to go to Altria. When they came to Altria's house, they happened to see her training swordsmanship. After being robbed of 2 meat buns by Mei Lin just now, Altria returned to the kitchen again, and it was satisfying to make up a drawer of Xia Longbao. When she was satisfied, all Altria had to do was start training her swordsmanship. His Royal Highness Morgan gave him the sword in the stone, so of course he can't live up to this. Picking up the sword in the stone, she began to train the tacit understanding with it. I want to be the strongest knight. Only in this way can he live up to the high hopes that His Royal Highness Morgan has for himself. By the way, there are so many enemies that His Royal Highness Morgan faces, and I need to protect her and His Majesty Lott. The nobles looked at Altria that could be turned into a simple house, and they had some insights in their hearts. He lives in poverty. This kind of person is the best to win. We only need to pay a small price. The nobleman thought in his heart. Then, he walked into Altria's small courtyard and greeted Altria. Knight Altria, hello. Hello, we are here on behalf of the nobles of Camelot. What do you want to do when you come? Because Morgan said before that the sword in the stone matter was probably caused by the nobles. Therefore, she is still very wary of these nobles. The nobleman did not speak, but looked around and asked Altria, well, do you live in the simple house here? Wouldn't you be unwilling? No, I am very satisfied with it here. Altria thought in her heart. In terms of living, her demand can be said to be 0. Not to mention living here. It doesn't matter even the stables. The nobleman's smile was a little frozen. Is this guy satisfied with life here? So he said straightforwardly, I'm here to ask you to cooperate with us. If you cooperate with us, we will guarantee that you can get the honor and status that you can't get in the hands of His Royal Highness Morgan, and from then on you will never have to worry about money anymore. If you like beauty, we would like you to choose any noble daughter to marry you. As long as you are willing to help us, we can give what Morgan gave, and we can give what Morgan can't. 3 seconds passed. Altria understood the meaning of these nobles. Meow meow meow. These people want to use beauty and power to win me over? Then let me betray His Royal Highness Morgan. Chapter 55 Coup 3K, third more. Even if Altria heard the words of the nobleman at the moment, he couldn't help feeling an urge to laugh. A smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Seeing her expression, the nobleman misunderstood. He thought it was Altria who had already begun to move. Yes, after all, he was just an ordinary knight and a sword drawer on Morgan's side. However, it would be different if you switched to your own side. So he decided to increase the bargaining chip, and he asked the attendant to get him a box. Inside the box, it was full of gold coins. Look, this is my sincerity. If you cooperate with us, this is just a meeting ceremony. Want to buy me? Altria thought amusedly in her heart. How could I betray His Royal Highness Morgan? What I ask for is the knight's guidelines and delicious food. These are all that His Royal Highness Morgan can give to me. You can't do it. His Majesty Lott's dining hall is the most happy place in the world. I don't like what you gave me. Money doesn't make any sense to me. I won't pursue the title. As for the beauties, you see, I don't seem to be pursuing the beautiful women everywhere. Then, although I am young, I am not stupid. I know exactly who thinks about me. His Royal Highness Morgan is very caring for me, and you nobles are just using me. So, she said to these nobles in a righteous manner, I will never do this kind of thing. Okay? The nobleman was stunned. Why are you not tempted? You sure? He felt whether he had heard it wrong. I heard okay out of I can't do it. Yes, I won't do this kind of thing that betrays the principles of the Cavaliers. At the same time, I will not betray my stomach. Altria firmly rejected these nobles. You. The nobleman stood up, pointed Altria with his finger, and said tremblingly, how? Altria also opened her clear eyes and greeted the nobleman. Humphrey. The nobleman snorted so angrily, and then left. As for the gold coin, he didn't take it either. Altria just watched them leave quietly. Then after he left, Altria felt that this matter could not be known by herself. So she also started to go to Morgan to tell this. Be careful of these nobles. Yes, you did a great job. Morgan wiped his still wet hair with a satisfied smile on his face. My previous investment was not in vain. My sister is about to have a heart with herself. This time I encountered an enemy's offer and refused without hesitation. Well, it can be trusted. This is what I should do, Altria said seriously. At the same time, she glanced at Morgan, a little strange. Does His Royal Highness Morgan have any habit of bathing? Why would she take a bath when I saw her? If Morgan could hear her voice, she would definitely tell her sister. This bathing thing is not something I want to do. The problem is that every time I finish it, my whole body is soaked, and I feel uncomfortable without taking a shower. I'm fine. The problem is that I have to change the sheets every time. I have seen more than once the aunts who cleaned the sheets for themselves looked at them with an enviable expression on their faces. Lott commented on the side. Unfortunately, if you agree to the trend, then let the nobles rely on you to resist. At that time, when the nobles are most proud of them, you will turn back and take them. Catch it all. The idea of Jianjijij is engraved in his own DNA, Lott said directly to Altria. Well, yeah, it's really good to do this. Morgan also recognized Lott's words. The words of the two couples sounded stunned by Altria. Can it be like this? How does your ethics seem to be slightly better than my teacher, especially His Majesty Lott? His Royal Highness Morgan is a magician like my teacher. Fortunately, you are a knight. Can you be a little bit principled? But she also knew that this was dealing with the enemy. The nobles are their enemies. To deal with the enemy, that is to do everything you can. I can understand, but I can't do it. Altria thought of this, and decided to eat something to soothe her injured young heart. Immediately, she picked up the gold coins given to her by the nobles just now. His Royal Highness, these are the gold coins given to me by the nobles. I will hand them over to you. No, you can hold these gold coins by yourself, Morgan said indifferently. Such a well-behaved sister, these gold coins are regarded as pocket money for her. No, I can't ask for it. These are all gifts from the nobles. I don't go with them, so I can't take them. Altria waved her hands again and again. Lott started at this moment and continued. What gift? Isn't that the stolen money? Of course the stolen money has to be paid in, and of course we won't pay it back. And what is given to you now is our gift, which is similar to those nobles. There is no relationship. She looked at Lott, then fell into a state of contemplation. Your Majesty Lott, can we be less Mei Lin as human beings? Morgan continued to persuade Altria. You also need money to maintain your horse. Your income as a knight is not high. It is also good for you to fill in the gap. Normal knights are indeed sufficient to maintain their horses. But do you not count how much food you eat, Altria? If you don't give you something to eat, what if you eat a warhorse in the future? Okay. In the end, Altria was pulled down by Morgan and Lott, and vaguely collected the stolen money. Seeing her take the stolen money, Lott nodded in satisfaction. Sure enough, it is such a pleasant thing to pull people into the water. Morgan glanced at Lott. Sex, are you a devil? However, I actually like it very much. Playing tricks on one's own sister is really pleasant sometimes. Looking at Altria, Morgan and Lott both glanced together, showing a meaningful smile. After Altria left, Lott looked at Morgan. The smile narrowed a little. Well, we should think about the affairs of those nobles next. We must be worried about whether they will jump over the wall in a hurry and then conspiracy to cause chaos. Lott said to Morgan. Rest assured, even if they did, I would easily defeat them. Morgan said confidently. Noblemen do not give up. When he found Altria to no avail, he went to the prostitution to look for Mei Lin. Although Mei Lin's bloodline disgusted them, in this situation, let them take care of their own interests first. Don't say it's a half nightmare. If you really give me a devil, we will also sign a contract with him. He wanted to convince Mei Lin with the words that he would lose his status as a national teacher after the new king ascended the throne. Then, after being ordered by Mei Lin for several hundred gold coins, he was directly rejected. Although Mei Lin didn't want Morgan to come on stage, he was not a fool. What use can these old nobles do? It is estimated that now that it is showing up, it was all done by Morgan. I don't want to join in the fun. Moreover, these people are thinking about their own enjoyment of power. What I wanted to pursue was that Altria became the king and continued the era of Britain. Therefore, you still need to prepare slowly as to how to do it. The actions of these nobles now know their fate without even thinking about them. These nobles will never succeed, and their property will belong to Morgan in the future. Therefore, instead of cheaper Morgan, it is better to leave it to one person. Mei Lin tapped the gold coins lightly and said, take money, but don't do anything for them. This is me. It's just an old white-haired liar. The nobleman returned home with anger. Who are these people? Taking the money one by one is very happy. As a result, when doing things, they don't do it. Are you bullying honest people? The nobleman was angry in his heart. Back home, other nobles waited for his answer. How does Mei Lin reply? That guy, don't agree to be with us. The nobleman said angrily. As for Mei Lin's taking away his money, he didn't say anything. This thing is really shameful. He will never talk to others. Then what shall we do next? The other nobles asked him again. The nobleman gritted his teeth and said to the other nobles, let's go directly to the coup. Camelot's regime must never fall into the hands of a woman. They will not say that it is for their own desire for power, but to find a good-sounding reason. Okay. The other nobles thought for a while, and then all agreed. Since you are determined to rebel, then don't hesitate. Now, we set off right away. and we must prepare before Morgan can react," the nobleman said. Everyone nodded in unison. At this time, one of the nobles remembered one thing and said to the nobleman, "By the way, a young noble knight from France just came to my home. His strength is very good. The knights of my family are not his opponents. During the coup, he can play a big role for us. It works. I'm going to persuade him now and let him also help us when the time comes." Chapter 56. Did I catch the Knights of the Round Table? 4K. There is still a while. Lott still has things to prepare. After a long time of charging, he is almost fully charged. In the previous war with Votagung, Lott never had time to go fishing in the long river of time. It was mainly at war, and there were too many people around. If it disappeared suddenly for a period of time, it wouldn't make sense at all. But some time ago, they moved into the Chalk City, which finally gave Lott some time to find time to go fishing. But the results of the previous few times, very unsatisfactory. After all, the system just says fishes never Air Force, but I won't tell you what it will catch. It is possible to catch silver carp and big head carp. It is also possible to catch a carp, or carp. Even if you catch a few divers with hanging fish, it is not impossible. Obviously, Lott failed a bit during the previous few fishing sessions. 2 made outfits, 1 Chong Sam, silk stockings and a few fat times. All of these let Lott use Morgan. Thumbs up. 1 each for MP3, MP4, and MP5, except MP5. The other 2 are not even powered. It has no effect. There are also some other things, but they are less useful than the above. Today, Lott is unwilling to try again. Although it is said that Britain in the future is already Brexit, it is not there yet. I am not a European. Why should there be a guarantee? Therefore, he needs to prepare more today before the nobles take advantage of their troubles. Lott can make Altria the king of Camelot. Although King Arthur didn't understand people's hearts, he was at least fair. But what will these nobles look like when they come to power? It can't be said that it is politically connected and harmonious. At least it is also utterly desolate. Never let this happen, Lott thought in his heart. He carried a fishing rod on his shoulders. In this morning, he asked Morgan to help himself to strengthen it, making this rod much stronger than the rod used by Lott before. Good products must be delivered today. Lott entered the long river of time. Still the long river. The river is still rushing in the rolling time. Lott came to the river. There is an advantage to fishing here. No need to fight nests. Lott waved the hook and threw it towards the river. Do you want to play some music at this time? Lott still thought in his heart. With the music on, will it start to link? But this plugin is really awesome. Just after he dropped the hook, he felt the fishing rod sink. Shipped? Lott suddenly became interested. See, what is it? Lott yanked upwards casually. But when he first did this, he felt something was wrong, etc. Why is it so heavy? The strength in his hand is completely different from the previous fishing uniforms and so on. Is this a good product? Although big doesn't mean great, but big is better than small. The object was very heavy, and Lott's line of sight could clearly see that the fishing rod was bent into a huge arc. Good guys. Lott hurriedly pulled up. This is a situation I have never encountered before. What is this? 5 or 6 catties of fish can make ordinary anglers very difficult to catch. According to Lott's idea, the people in the river are at least 100 catties. If Lott is not a superb knight, if the fishing rod weren't specially made by Lott specifically for Morgan to use magic to strengthen it, then the fishing rod would definitely break. Lott was very curious about what was inside. Even if you fished me more than 100 catties of stones, I would recognize it. Get me up, Lott yelled, and the veins on his arm burst out. Then he shook it up vigorously. Gradually, the fishing line is up. Then, a human figure gradually appeared. It's not an emergency food. A lot taller. Although he was still a teenager, he was about a teenager, and he was very handsome, with shredded white hair covering half of his eyes, and he was wearing a purple and black knight costume. In his hand he held a very familiar sword. At this moment, he was caught by Lott. He was still in a daze. At this moment, the long river of time around disappeared. Lott and the boy appeared again by the river outside the Chalk City. The teenager showed a wary expression, and he looked around. On the opposite side, Lott looked at the boy who appeared in front of him, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. What is this? I know that the angler will never be the Air Force, but I never thought that this would really catch people. Moreover, this person is still a familiar person. It's just that he shouldn't be here now. In the current era, his father is just a young man. Even, it should be on the French side, not setting foot on the land of Britain. Galahad is known as the holiest knight. How could it appear here? Why are you here? He couldn't help asking. At this moment, Galahad was also very surprised. He only saw his father some time ago, but he hasn't recognized him yet. He didn't like the father who abandoned himself and his mother very much. However, at the request of his mother, he endured it. Then he didn't wait for more communication with his father. Just now, I actually felt a burst of suction. It seems to be pulling oneself away. Then, it's black in front of you. He appeared in this place. This seems to be outside the Chalk City, but it feels very different from the surrounding things. Where is this place? Looking at the handsome man in front of him, he felt a familiarity, as if he had seen it somewhere. However, he can guarantee that he has never seen this person. I don't know how I appeared here. Excuse me, are you? he asked Lott, who looked a few years old. My name is Lott. Lott said his name. The angler is never the Air Force. Since this Galahad appeared in front of him, then he must not miss it. Although I don't know why it caught a person. But when the fish is hooked, it is necessary to find a way to stew it and eat it in the mouth. Looking at him, there is only a sword but no shield. That still looks relatively immature. There is no journey to find the Holy Grail later. Looked at Galahad's weapon again. This weapon was used by the poor knight Mei Lin in the future, and then he was picked up by Galahad after he died. Finally, the sword was passed to Lancelot's hands. This sword has something to do with himself. The last sword was the weapon that killed his son Gan. But now that I have come here, then none of this will happen anymore. Lott. Galahad thought about the name. Very familiar, etc. He raised his head to face Lott and asked, then, Orkney County? Yes, it's my country. Lott said without hesitation. This. Galahad looked at the man in front of him, and couldn't believe that he turned out to be King Lott of Orkney. This seems to be just a teenager who is not a few years older than himself. I remember that he was already very old, but as he looks now, he is completely a teenager. And what did he do in the Chalk City? Isn't he the few people most opposed to King Arthur? His Royal Highness, I still have something to go back to the Chalk City, so I have to take a step. Galahad said to Lott. Lott appeared in the Chalk City, and I want to remind His Majesty King Arthur. Among them, there is definitely a problem. Are you going back to the Chalk City? Just so. I have something to go back. Let's be together. Lott seemed to think of something, and said to Galahad. Galahad was also a little sluggish. He is not the knight who has obtained the Holy Grail at this moment. Although he is innocent at this moment, he is still a fledgling. That, I am going back to the Chalk City. He stammered. Didn't you engage in a conspiracy? Why did you go back blatantly? Yes, back to the Chalk City. Is there any problem? Lott said to Galahad. Galahad felt something was wrong. Then, he asked Lott, Your Majesty Lott, why are you here alone? He quietly clenched the sword. Fishing. Is there any problem? Lott replied to Galahad, pretending not to see it. Fishing. Fishing? Galahad looked at Lott's dress. Casual wear, with a fishing rod. This really looks like fishing. Are you not the king of Orkney? Don't you want to overthrow King Arthur's regime? But why do you fish here? Yeah, I am fishing here. Lott looked at the fish and said, after dealing with the government affairs of the Chalk City for a long time, it happens to be fishing to relax. Young people, fishing is a very decompressive thing. Handle the government affairs of the Chalk City. Galahad felt that he was beaten to the head by someone, and then beat himself stupid. Yeah, is there any problem with this? King Arthur has passed away, and no new king has appeared yet, so Morgan and I had to deal with government affairs for the time being. King Arthur died? Hearing this news, Galahad felt as if he had come to an amazing place. Galahad continued to question Lott. And Lott, who wanted to tell Galahad, also spoke to him and answered these things. Of course, this answer is very official. What? He and Morgan defeated Vortigern, and then King Arthur left Camelot because of his serious injury, and he is still in a period of royal power. These words let Galahad roughly understand his situation. I don't know why I came to Britain decades ago. And it's not the same as the history that I know well. In this era, Morgan turned out to rule the Chalk City. Too strange, Galahad thought in his heart. The King Lott in front of him is young, so his concubine Morgan is also young, and King Arthur should also be young. Go Mei Lin. Okay. His age is not too young now. The most important thing for him is that person, who is still young at the moment. Maybe you can contact him. At this moment, Lott made a suggestion to him. Looking at you, you should be a knight with good skills. How about, do you want to go to the Chalk City first? Over there, you should be reused. Well, thank you, Your Majesty King Lott. Galahad thought for a while, nodded and agreed. Although I don't know what the situation is, since I am here, I have to live here even for the time being. Although King Lott in front of him was not a few years older than himself, he was very good. He is sincere to himself. I am too embarrassed to refuse. As for who Lott is, it is better to wait until he personally verifies it. Galahad agreed to Lott's suggestion and thanked him for taking in. So, on the way back, Lott, who had originally returned to the Chalk City by himself, had a person beside him at this moment. Knight Galahad. On the way back, Lott and Galahad saw Morgan at the gate of the city wall. Wife, do you think I brought you something good? Far away, Morgan heard Lott's cry in his heart. She looked around with expectant gaze. It was nothing but a Galahad. Is this person a gift? Is it edible? Bah. What am I thinking? Why should I be assimilated by my sister? Wait until Lott and Galahad came close. He is? Morgan pointed to Galahad. Galahad of the Knights of the Round Table. See His Royal Highness Morgan. Regardless of what Morgan did, but her identity is here, as a knight. Galahad, of course, will not lose her etiquette. And his words were heard in Morgan's ears, and she instantly smiled openly. Good fellow, this man is the knight you found me for the dog. The current Knights of the Round Table. The leader is Morgan Pendragon. Morgan didn't know anything about the other Knights of the Round Table. Now this Galahad claims to be a Knight of the Round Table. Well, that didn't run away. He must be the helper that the dog found for himself. Morgan looked at Galahad carefully. Well, although it looks immature, but I believe that you are definitely not doing thankless things. His strength is definitely there. It just so happens that we are now going to fight against those nobles and put down the coup of those nobles. In this process, although we have planned it, it is still very dangerous. At this time, the dog still needs someone to protect. So let him join my Knights of the Round Table. At that time, he happened to be in charge of helping the dog grab the array. If you run into a knight that you can't beat, you can save the dog. Yes, not bad. Chapter 57 Father-in-law? Make up yesterday's update. Galahad is still adjusting to the world before him. This is the world a few years before he was born. And the most important thing is that what is happening here is a world that is completely different from what I learned from my mother. Arthur did not become king. The biggest contradiction now turned out to be the contradiction between Morgan and the old nobles. What is this? Even Galahad felt an urge to complain. But now it seems that I had to follow Lott and Morgan and stay here for the time being to inquire about the news. Galahad held the sword in his hand, ready to make a stance to fight with others at any time. When they came to a clearing, Lott and Morgan sat down. Then Lott said to Galahad, "Xiogia, go around and be on guard." Xiogia? Why did you call Xiogia directly? Hearing Lott say this, Galahad was a little depressed. Is this person so familiar? Although he was depressed, he nodded and agreed. After Galahad was gone, Lott said to Morgan a bit aggravated, "I said, I can do this alone. You are not me. What should I do if there is a danger?" He came out with a fishing rod. Apart from fishing in the long river, he had another plan. Lott wanted to entice those nobles to take action. You still have to do things right and right. Lott wanted to seduce a nobleman to assassinate himself. As long as someone assassinates himself, then you can just start to deal with the nobles. At the same time, there is also pressure on other nobles to allow them to accept these humiliating conditions. If they go to the nobles by themselves, even if they give in, they want to negotiate terms with themselves. Now that he was assassinated, he wanted to come up with a plan to kill all the nobles, then those nobles would naturally bend their legs. These are Lott's plans. Of course, there are some dangers, but I can't bear to let the child not be able to lay wolves, and I can't bear to let the buns not be able to lay my king. There are always some risks in doing things. Lott also arranged for Kay to listen to his orders at any time and then begin to respond. So this is as foolproof as possible. However, even so, he did not intend to involve Morgan. My wife is such a weak magician. It is estimated that just a little bit of Liu Yagin hurt her. She appeared here. It was not a very good thing. Lott secretly said in his heart. Hearing his thoughts, Morgan raised his eyebrows slightly. Good slutty dog. Although you are worried about me, I am very happy. But can you explain to me, what is physical weakness, which can be hurt by a random note? I, Morgan, are very strong. Okay, I'm here. It's better than you alone. What if the enemy is a magician? Isn't you a knight a target? Morgan said to Lott. Lott said nothing, and silently took out the origin bomb. At the same time, the other hand also took out the MP-345. Put 3 and 4 back. Lott also kept holding the MP-5 submachine gun in his hand. He showed these to Morgan. There is no way for me to deal with a magician. Suppress the magician with a gun, and then go close to them and give them a few swords. That's good. I will leave you alone next time. Morgan smashed Lott's arm with his fist. It doesn't hurt or itchy, and it's more like a massage than a beating. Anyway, I have come by your side. Can you still let me go back alone? Morgan put his arms around his chest. A pair of me are here. You come in a casual posture. Look at her like this. Lott also couldn't help it. All right, remember to wait and follow me. He had to tell Morgan. Okay. Morgan nodded and agreed. Then Morgan thought of the Galahad and asked Lott, by the way, what is the strength of the knight called Galahad? His strength? Lott thought for a moment. It's definitely a strong one. Even among the more than 100 knights of the Round Table, Galahad's strength is definitely the strongest. His child Gilm was almost beaten to death without Galahad's knowledge. A complete small addition. It is estimated that 3 times Gawain can suppress him at that time. And Lancelot, not necessarily. Now he only has that sword in his hand, just a fledgling. Strength. It should still be stronger than the current Morgan and me. After all, Morgan is not yet the master of the entire British island. Yes, Morgan heard Lott's comment, and there was a light in her eyes. It's not bad. I went out and went around and found such a knight. Amazing, really amazing, Morgan thought in his heart. At this moment, Morgan and Lott heard the sound of fencing. Okay, fighting? That location is where Galahad just went. Did he fight with someone? Lott and Morgan looked at each other and thought in their hearts. Go over and take a look, Lott said to Morgan. Okay, Morgan nodded. Then, the two people walked in the direction of battle. Soon, they came to the fighting place. Galahad was fighting. It was a young man with purple hair who was fighting against him. He is tall and burly, handsome, and very skilled in martial arts. In the battle with Galahad, there was absolutely nothing to lose. Lott's eyes widened when he saw this young man. Father-in-law? He said subconsciously. When he thought so, Morgan glared at him with a slanted eye. What are you thinking about? Your father-in-law. Isn't that my dad? What are you talking about? Morgan asked Lott. This knight is very similar to a little friend I played with when I was a kid, and his nickname is father-in-law. Lott quickly defended. Subconsciously, pay attention to yourself. Don't talk nonsense in the future. Lott complained about himself in his heart. Lott felt very innocent to Morgan's questioning. Isn't this a subconscious reaction? It's like seeing Lin, subconsciously shouting scams, seeing beautiful women, subconsciously calling young lady, and seeing people studying, subconsciously calling Yanzu. It's all a subconscious reaction. Morgan was satisfied when he heard Lott's thoughts. Okay. Besides, the knight in front of him looked like he was about 20 years old. Even if you get married early, you won't have a teenage child. Well, it's alright. Peas, it's just a stalker. I didn't write the schoolgirl outline there. But even if I write, it's impossible to demolish the CP, and the single female main party will not change. The 58th chapter. Father and son cut. The rest, wake up and write again. Time went back 10 minutes. Galahad is on guard in the jungle. Although he knew that Lott asked him to leave temporarily, it was mainly because he wanted to speak with Morgan alone, but he didn't expect much of his vigilance effect. However, since he had agreed to Lott, then he would definitely do it seriously. Go on patrol seriously, and Galahad is prepared for possible crises. Looking at the Chalk City, this city was different from the war-torn vicissitudes he had seen before. The Chalk City in front of him has never been occupied by the humble King Vuticking, nor has he experienced many wars. It looks really good. Galahad thought in his heart. What the am I here for? Maybe it's the choice of the gods? Galahad thought in his heart. When I was just about to join the Knights of the Round Table, I suddenly came decades ago and met Morgan's husband Lott. Before I find my current goal, what I have to do is to do my own jobs first. Galahad continued to observe left and right. Wait, someone is here. After just a few seconds of observation, he felt someone coming. Okay? Is it a pedestrian? No, that's not right. This person came here with a murderous look. As an innocent knight, Galahad is very sensitive to the feeling of these breaths. He was keenly aware of the murderous aura this person had produced when he came over. Let's see who it is before talking about it. If it is a killer, I will first help His Majesty Lott to catch the killer. Galahad walked in the direction where the murderous aura came, and at the same time raised the long sword in his hand. Then he took a few steps forward. The sword in his hand was gripped tighter. Why does he appear here? Galahad saw Lancelot with surprise in his eyes. Although compared with more than 20 years later, he looks much younger and less stable. But his appearance has not changed much after 20 years. He still has that nasty look. In this era, King Arthur has not yet appeared. Why did he come here? And also came to Lott and Morgan with murderous aura. What happened in the middle? Galahad thought in his heart. But he knew that this person in front of him was absolutely uneasy and kind. I want to interrogate him first. Holding the sword, Galahad stood in front of Lancelot. You didn't do well as a knight. Did you come here to be a killer? Does your chivalry only stay on paper? With a playful expression on Galahad's face, he said to Lancelot, although he wanted to try his best to restrain, but when he appeared in front of Lancelot, he couldn't help but ridicule. Lancelot was going to find Lott, but he hadn't been found yet. Instead, a silver-haired young knight appeared in front of him to stop him. And the words are not polite. I don't know why, when he saw this boy, he had a familiar illusion. Have I seen it? No, I can guarantee that I have never seen it before. However, he gave me a very familiar feeling. Of course, he couldn't bear the ridicule just now. Lancelot is not a good-tempered person. After facing Galahad's mockery, he replied, I'm here to find Lott. If you don't want to be injured by mistake, please stay aside. It is my duty to guard the people who need to be guarded. You want to pass by me, but that is not allowed. Galahad took the sword in his hand and said to Lancelot. Seeing him like this, Lancelot certainly took up the sword and prepared to fight back. Now, when it comes to fighting, he hasn't conceded to anyone yet. Galahad saw Lancelot holding the sword, with an expression of excitement on his face. There has been no chance before. Now I can finally fight him. There was an expression of excitement in Galahad's eyes. Then he swung his sword and rushed over. Lancelot put the sword across his chest, ready to resist. Clang! The swords of the two people collided with each other. At the same time stepped back a few steps. Good strength. Lancelot commented on Galahad. Aren't you the same? Or, you have used all your strength in the last blow just now. Galahad replied. When Lancelot heard Galahad's words, his face went black. If the young man in front of him didn't speak, he was actually a quiet young man. As a result, Lancelot heard this. Where did this person come from? I have no grievances with him, right? What's the reason? Thinking of this in his mind, he was not slow at all to start. After all, after the mutual trial just now, Lancelot was sure that the strength of the knight in front of him was definitely not weaker than himself. Be careful. On Galahad's side, he also knew how strong Lancelot, as the strongest player of the Knights of the Round Table, was through the intersection just now. Even in his youth, he must go all out. So the two people fought, and they both used their own strength, for fear that they would lose. And when the two people fought fiercely, Lott and Morgan also came here. Let me help Xiojia. Lott saw the father and son fighting in front of him, and immediately decided to help Galahad first. Although Lancelot in front of him was obviously the kind he had just debuted, His martial arts and the experience of confrontation were far inferior to when he killed dozens of Knights of the Round Table by himself. But Galahad is just now in his debut in a fight. This variable is too big. For the safety of Galahad, Lott decided to do his part, picking up the long sword. He also joined the battle group, although his strength is indeed inferior to Lancelot and Galahad. He is not a soy sauce player. When he shoots his sword, Lancelot also turns to defend. As soon as the two of them taught, Lott felt Lancelot's powerful strength. With just one blow, he felt that he couldn't support it. He is definitely not an opponent. Galahad also saw Lott come to work on Lancelot. He said loudly to Lott, although this is against the spirit of chivalry, but the situation is urgent now. Let's defeat the enemy Lancelot. Lott could not help but want to laugh when he heard Galahad's words. Sure enough, when facing Lancelot, Jake just didn't bring any chivalry into it. But this is also just right. Let's fight the enemy first. The rest we'll go back to discuss. Chapter 59 Morgan. In the future, my children can't be so filial. Make up and change. I said, can you two be called knights if you do this? Before this white-haired boy played against himself one-on-one, it was enough. During the battle, one of his goals, King Lott of Orkney County, also came to attack him. Although I did come with the purpose of being an enemy of you, but you two fight one with a face of justice. Is this still a knight? Lancelot didn't know how low the morals of the traversers from the future were. What chivalry? What I played was chivalry. As long as I win, what can I do? Lott didn't care about such things as morality. As for Galahad on the other side, who still talks about the rules of chivalry when his son beats his father. No way. Lott attacked and said to Lancelot, for you don't need to talk about chivalry. On Galahad's side, he said, for the killer who comes over, you don't need to pay attention to chivalry. Now that you have thought of doing this kind of thing, then you have the consciousness of giving up chivalry. Hearing Galahad's words, Lancelot had the urge to vomit blood. I did come to fight Lott, but that was also a normal knight's duel. I'm not an assassin. Where did the assassination come from? And you, what is going on with you? My target is Lott. Lott's attack on me is not as vicious as you. He just took the time to play a few times. You are trying to work hard. I haven't seen you. Why do I feel like you have a deep hatred against me? Where did I offend him? Lancelot racked his brains, but couldn't think of it. At the same time, to deal with Galahad's continuous attack, if he is distracted, it really won't work. At this time, Lott and Galahad's offensive began to intensify. The two of them faced Lancelot, usually Galahad and Lancelot head-to-head. Lott was still swinging his sword beside him and attacking him. Since the two men are besieging, they have been so ignorant of martial ethics. Then it wouldn't be a big deal not to talk about martial arts. Lott's swordsmanship was aimed at Lancelot's next three-way attack. Behind them, Morgan also used gain magic to cast a past at Lott. Don't give me any danger to me. Morgan used all the buffing magic he had experienced. Nothing to Galahad at all. Both Galahad and Lancelot felt this situation. Both of them felt a little bit sorrow inexplicably at the same time. The two played against Lancelot. There is nothing wrong with Galahad. Lott clearly felt the difference between himself and the two of them. Sure enough, Zongru's aptitude of this type of moon is still not as good as these two father and son who are among the best in the Knights of the Round Table. The two players must have played Lancelot before playing together, but it is still dangerous if you can't manage it yourself. So, don't cut it head on with Lancelot. We are illiterati. The fight is not for me. Then the adult age has changed. Lott left the two first, then picked up the MP5 from his waist. Galahad is no worse than Lancelot, so Lott's retreat will not cause him much problem. Seizing an opportunity, while Galahad and Lancelot were separated, he picked up the MP5 in his hand and started shooting at Lancelot. Da. The bullet seemed to pour out of mercury, and attacked Lancelot. When shooting Lancelot with a gun, Lott remembered the scene where he shot a saber with a gun during the Holy Grail War he had seen in his previous life. Well, Altria, although you have eaten so many things from us, you are on our side anyway. Then I can avenge you. Lancelot was still guarding against Galahad's attack just now, but he did not expect. At this moment Lott took out a strange weapon. What's this? He thought in his mind. Then he saw a flame emitting from the weapon, and at the same time some metal objects shot at him. Lancelot quickly defended. The damage from these metal objects is not too great, but there are too many, and all of them hit him in the face. Eyes and other vital points can't be defended, so he dodges immediately, and then avoids. At this time, Galahad seized the opportunity and launched an attack on Lancelot. Swinging the sword to attack Lancelot, a sword slashed to his shoulder. Click. Lancelot's shoulder armor was knocked down. Then, Galahad hit his waist with a kick. Hey, you are too vicious like this. Lancelot hurried to a roll, avoiding Galahad's attack. He is not married yet. If this is shot, how can I have offspring? No, you have to avoid it quickly. Behind, watching Lancelot's action, Lott almost didn't laugh madly. Really, a father is kind and filial. This Xiojia was so cruel to her father. She kicked her waist directly. Is it possible to kick that place? He thought in his heart. And behind, Morgan, who was still using Lott's buffing magic, almost didn't throw the wand in his hand. What's going on? Father is kind and filial. Is this white-haired knight the purple-haired son in front of you? Hey, you are not mistaken. This purple-haired knight looks less than 20, right? It doesn't look like a man with 15 or 6 children, right? Precocious. This doesn't bring such precocious ones, right? Or, this purple-haired guy is actually the same as the old guy Mei Lin, a guy who pretends to be tender? No, there is still a big difference between pretending to be small and real. Is this knight really young? What is going on? Could it be that although this little plus looks almost 15 or 16 years old, how old is it actually? Morgan felt that his IQ was really not enough. Also, since Xiojia knows that this is his own father, he is still so cruel. Is this too filial? Your future children can't be so unfilial. You have to listen to yourself. On the other side, Lancelot saw that his shoulder armor was cut off, and then he looked at Galahad, who looked warrior, and Lott who was holding a strange weapon behind him. Lancelot knew I am here today. It is very difficult to win today's battle. I will continue later, he said to Lott, and then he was about to retreat. And watching him retreat like this, Lott put the gun away and said to him, Lancelot, if you leave, I'm afraid that the nobles will counter death. Chapter 30, Inner Cloth Group. 1,020,037,992 Sharing Exchange Group 813,921,374 Dumbfounded Little Plus, 4K. Although he didn't know why the Yangtze River appeared here, but Lott is sure that he must have been deceived by those nobles. He is really not very good in terms of feelings, so he wore such a big green hat for my sister-in-law. But in other respects, he is also a very qualified knight. He will never go with those nobles, so he is probably deceived. What I want now is to expose this matter. Let him stop being an enemy of us. If after I have explained all this, if you want to be our enemy, then I can only continue to let Galahad attack you. Damn, if I get Frostmourne or Mo's sword someday, I'll give Galahad and let him teach you a lesson. Morgan listened behind, also a little speechless. You let the son of someone else chop his father. This is too shameless. Also, what is the situation with the father and son? And, what are you talking about Frostmourne and Xiao Mo's sword? Is it easy to use? Morgan now has an expression of I'm curious all over his face. When Galahad heard Lott say this, he also covered his face with some speechlessness. Although it is not clear, I can't read his heart. But both Lott and Morgan can predict Galahad's thoughts. Own daddy, who is really an out-and-out idiot. Lancelot was going to leave. But after hearing Lott say this, he stopped his body. What makes you say that? He spoke. As a knight, the last thing he wants is to be deceived and used by others. If you were deceived, you would be too stupid. He, Lancelot, was originally a knight of France. As an excellent swordsman, the surrounding knights and lords are not his opponents, and he has always been eager for a worthy opponent. He originally thought that he would be the best young knight of this era. Then he heard about Lott and Morgan. The two of them are about the same age as themselves, so many people can't help but compare. The fame of the humble King Vuitiking is also very famous in France. It can't be said that it is admired by all people. It can also be said that it is just a child crying at night. And this Vuitigung was actually defeated by Lott and Morgan. When he was in France, he didn't know the specific process, but he knew that Lott and Morgan defeated the king. At this moment, no one around him said that he was a powerful knight anymore. You rock. You are better than our nobles who are drunk and dreamy these days. Do you have the ability to compete with the humble King Vuitiking? You can't compete with the underdog, and then such a person also loses in the hands of Lott and Morgan. So, with the unconvinced Lancelot in his heart, he took the sword and went to Britain by boat. The closest places in Britain and France are only over 30 kilometers long. Lancelot can easily swim over by swimming. When he arrived in Britain, he came to a noble territory. And when he arrived there, he happened to see a group of bandits turned into the remnants of Vuitigung coming to this territory to rob. When Lancelot saw this situation, of course he wanted to help. Then he used less than 10% of his strength to easily defeat dozens of wandering knights and arrested them all. Lancelot won such a battle. Naturally, he was treated as a guest by the local lord, and then warmly received. And then, after that level of reporting, the nobles also knew about the existence of Lancelot. Knowing that above their territory, a knight who came from France with great skill. Such superb knights, they are going to fight Morgan now, and of course they won't let it go. They invited Lancelot over to entertain them with delicious food and drinks. Faced with the kindness of these nobles, Lancelot's first feeling for these people was of course very good. During the banquet, he also took the time to inquire about Morgan and Lott. When these nobles heard this, they really felt that they dozed off and met pillows. So he quickly told Lancelot how despicable Morgan and Lott were. In order to accomplish their own goals, they can do whatever it takes to do anything that doesn't pay attention to chivalry. At that time, Lancelot asked why such a person could beat Vuitigung. Because they are shameless. The nobleman explained to Lancelot like this. So he said to Lancelot, when he was fighting with Vuitigung, the two brazenly used Morgan's father, King Yaozef, as a bait, and asked him to attract Vuitigung's eyes, and then sneak attack behind him in the chaos. Later, our King Asa was seriously injured and died. largely because they attacked at the last minute. I suspect that the death of the old king was part of their plan. The nobleman continued. He wouldn't explain to Lancelot. In fact, King Arthur knew about it and did it willingly. He was just exaggerating. Lott and Morgan are definitely not good people's things. In order to make Lancelot even more hateful, he also said to Lancelot, as a nobleman, I actually also know that Morgan has ideas about France. They can't deal with Vosges head-on. They may want to go occupy the land of France. At that time, they will impose their own governance methods on the French people. Listening to the aristocratic man's remarks, Lancelot believed it 80%. Of course, there is still a certain degree of suspicion. But when he came from France, he planned to fight Lott. Therefore, he agreed to find a suitable opportunity to fight Lott. Today, while Lott went fishing out of town, he was determined to keep up and fight him. And before the battle, he deliberately told the nobles that this is a just one-on-one, never let anyone help him. And now, after he fought Lott, he can confirm one thing, at least those nobles said nothing wrong. When Lott fought with people, it was really despicable, and it could be said that he used everything. So he decided to leave first. But when he left, Lott unexpectedly said something like this. I was deceived. What makes you say that? Lancelot asked Lott. I thought, did the nobles say that I do things despicable? Lott asked Lancelot. Lancelot didn't say anything, just looked at the MP5 in Lott's hand. Is it mean at all? Do you have no idea in your heart? But Lott had already developed a face that it was impossible for curry sticks to penetrate. Therefore, he pretended not to see Lancelot's gaze, and continued, I am despicable or not, it depends on people. To those nobles who only want to enjoy themselves, I am despicable. But to the whole Camillo, and those civilians who want to live a normal life in Camelot, Morgan and I are absolutely qualified. Want to know what is going on with me? Why don't you check it out for yourself? Lott said openly to Lancelot. In this regard, he is extremely confident. As for his class, he cares more about the people than everyone in this era. I will do it. Lancelot agreed with his head. After agreeing, he asked Lott, so, can I go now? Of course. Lott nodded slightly. Lancelot wanted to leave, but he still took a look at Galahad. By the way, who is this knight? Why do I feel some familiar feelings? Lancelot couldn't help asking. That is your biological son, of course you are familiar with it. Lott and Morgan thought in their hearts at the same time. Immediately, seeing Lancelot, who was younger than himself, had children, Lott couldn't help but glance at Morgan. It seems that the manufacturing process of Gawain must be tightened. Morgan glared at Lott when he heard this in his heart. You sucker. Think about these all the time. Megan, at least you have to wait until the evening. Also, do you recognize the name Gawain? If this is to give birth to a daughter in the future. I see her wearing the name Gawain. What do you think of your father? Not sure. She thinks it should be the same as Xioge's to his father. Galahad heard Lancelot say this, opened his mouth, then curled his mouth, and replied, I am just an ordinary knight from a small place and raised up by my mother alone. I am famous in France. The knight Lancelot didn't know him at all before. Such a big grievance? What is this? Mr. Lancelot was very distressed. But forget it, what I have to do now is to find out the truth of the matter and see if I have been deceived. He turned and left. When he was about to leave, he saw two knights approaching. A knight is tall and the other is very petite, but looking at the pace of the two, they are not like simple people. Are these all Morgan's men? How come her men are so full of talents? Lancelot thought in his heart. But immediately, he found that both of them were holding several long swords in their hands. It seemed that it was like having experienced a great war. His face changed slightly. He can already guess what happened just now. Those nobles didn't completely believe in themselves, or thought of assassination. In addition to themselves, they also sent a killer at the same time. However, these Lotts were still prepared to make people prepare an ambush ahead of time. These nobles, although they say Lott's battle is very shameless, but they don't seem to be any better. Regarding Lott's statement, Lancelot at this moment had already believed a little bit, but this time he won't be able to draw conclusions easily. He still decided to actually investigate. Who are you? Seeing Lancelot, Kay took out the long sword in his hand. I was looking for the assassin who was lying in ambush with Altria before. I didn't pay much attention to the road. I didn't expect that there would be enemies here. You let him go first. But at this moment, Lott said to Kai. Hearing what their lord said, Kai and Altria let go and let Lancelot leave. Report to your majesty Lott, His Royal Highness Morgan. The enemy has ambushed 10 killers. At this moment, all of them have been killed. Kay and Altria report to Lott. Yes, not bad. Lott gave a satisfied smile. Seeing Lott's smile, Altria smiled. Not bad, not to be blamed by His Royal Highness. Our food supply is still guaranteed. Earlier today, His Royal Highness Morgan had ordered with himself. If I didn't protect His Majesty Lott well this time, and there was something wrong, half of my food ration would be replaced with brown bread with sawdust. That's absolutely not necessary. Altria shouted in her heart. Then, when she looked to the side, she happened to see a white-haired teenager with a surprised look. Okay, what's up with him? Galahad at this moment, with a big mouth, can swallow an entire apple. What did I see? King Arthur came to claim his servants against Morgan. What's happening here? What's wrong? Kay patted Galahad on the shoulder at this moment and said, It's nothing. Hearing Kay's words, Galahad, who was a shy boy when facing others, shook his head with a flushed face at this moment. Morgan said at this moment, by the way, this is Galahad and a member of the Knights of the Round Table. Okay, I get it now. Hearing Morgan's words like this, Altria showed a dazed expression. I said this boy would be so surprised when he saw me. He must know my identity as the chief of the Knights of the Round Table. Well, he may have doubts about my ability. No, I will let him know that I can take on this responsibility. Altria straightened her chest and showed awe-inspiring appearance. Galahad saw the sword in the stone on her waist. Well, you drew that sword? He asked Altria. Yes, I pulled it out. Altria smiled happily. Although His Royal Highness Morgan asked me to do this, I am still very happy to be able to pick up the sword, she said to Galahad. Xiojia tried to recall the story her mother told her, and then looked at Altria in front of her. He scratched his hair. This, what and what? Galahad muttered to himself. I feel that my mind is not enough.